Hello and welcome to the camera's over here. Hello, I'm waving to my camera. Coming to you from my laptop. I'm Indy. This guy over here is Jay from Powell Group Consulting, and this is Indie Game Business, episode 5. I think it is. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
today,
So the big news is we hit affiliate status last night while everyone was watching me die repeating in the fire and the flame.
so literally 4 shows in, and then the times that you streamed, then we got affiliate status. Yeah.
Is that good?
I've seen people stream for like months and not be able to get affiliate status.
Well, I told you, it's one of those things that if you put something in front of me, an Xbox achievement, a Steam achievement, or, whatever they put in the Twitch channel, it's like, if you stream blah, 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 you'll hit this. It's like, of course I'm going to sit there and do it because that's just the way my
Your mindset. Well, now look at the requirements for becoming a partner.
Oh, I don't want to look at
now.
that yet.
Now you're gonna have to quit your day job and
this is my day job
and play games all the time. So today we're talking about crowdfunding. Oh, so partner status. That means you can subscribe and you can also donate bits right now. Do you have a plan for what's going to happen to sub revenue?
Oh, stuff for the show. I mean, it's just gonna go back into the show.
Okay, perfect.
Giveaways and such. It's not. I'm not planning to create a media empire at the moment. But yeah, big thanks to Lee, who was our first sub. Dude, I appreciate that. And
first sub.
Like I said, your recipe for the sweet potato wedges wrapped in bacon that you gave me months ago.
What?
We eat that all the time. Oh my God, it is so good. It was just like, now Lee eats it because it was like on a diet plan he had, which I probably should be on, but not. But sweet potato wedges wrapped in bacon.
Wait,
it's really
something
good.
wrapped in bacon is on a diet plan?
I know, seriously.
Oh my God. Bacon is one of my favorite foods. Bacon and sausage.
Basically anything that comes from a pig.
I know. That's ground up or laid out flat or whatever. Grilled, barbecued.
So,
All right.
I mean, one of the side effects of the show is that I'm finally getting a chance to dive back into a lot of games that I haven't got around to playing, in that deep Steam catalog that I have of, I need to play this at some point in time.
Right.
So it's been good. I have enjoyed this greatly. And today as well is our first viewer recommended subject for a show.
Yeah. Crowdfunding.
So keep that in mind, folks. If there's something in particular that you want to know that we haven't covered, or if we covered something but didn't go in depth or in the direction you wanted us to go with it, let us know. We'll make a show for it. It's all fun and games.
You can tweet out right there, or you can hashtag Indie Game Business. Yeah.
Yes. So, do you want to jump into the news? Do you want me to jump into the news? Who you want to handle it?
Jump into the news. What is this? Xbox One least popular platform among indie developers.
Which makes sense.
It does make sense, but it's like before the Xbox 360, they had like the indie game store. I mean, they had a bunch of dollar games. I mean, I made a game with zombies in it. It's on there.
If you go back and look at the cycle of consoles that go back, I'm Sega days, back to, I'm not going to say as far back as the Genesis and everything else, but when PlayStation came out and all of a sudden we had 3 major consoles, it was, the one that did well last generation is the loser in the next generation. And, we saw that from, working with Sony on the PS2. They dominated that generation. And then when the PS3 came out, that's when the 360 was out and the 360 took over. What typically happens is whoever wins, becomes impossible to deal with on the business end later. And we saw it, with each one of these generations. And so what's interesting now is we're in another generation, but we're not, because instead of coming out with a PS5 or the Xbox 12 or whatever they're going to call it, they've both just upped their PS4 Pro and the Xbox One S, X, or whatever it is, and we've got a Switch now. So we're in kind of like this new quasi, generation. But Microsoft did two bad things, in my opinion. In the first iteration of the Xbox One, and their announcement, they just came out of the gate wrong, and it hurt them from the get-go. Even if you look at something as seemingly tiny as press conference timing at E3, they came out and did all their announcements, and it basically allowed Sony to sit back and go, okay, what are they going to announce? Let's counter it. They couldn't change major things, but there's tweaks that could be made by knowing what your opponent's doing. But when things were like, oh, we're going to have this always on microphone and camera, and that turned off a lot of people. And there were multiple issues with their original launch. And then so they started out, low man on the totem pole. Everybody is always going to optimize and release their game on the platform with the biggest install base. So they're already behind. And then in a Hail Mary attempt to catch up, they said, you don't have to buy a dev kit. If you have an Xbox One, that's your dev kit. And everything just gets flooded in there, and the market gets crowded. And you've got the same issue you got on Steam or the Apple Store. It's just too much stuff in there to, compete with. Your discoverability is an issue. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't surprise me. And if you read the article, it's coming out of EGX, the show over in London, and they say they only, these percentages come from 61 developers that were, polled. And, so it's not like the best data set, but I can tell you from our own data set, from our own, surveys that we do and industry, that that's true. Whether or not the percentages are the same, it's true.
Right. And plus Nintendo, which has always been, you have to be a Nintendo developer to put anything on any Nintendo. They opened it up to whoever.
Well, yeah, but it's still, you can't just call up Nintendo and get a Switch game. You actually have to go through an approval process, even if you are an existing Nintendo developer. We've got a client who's been making Nintendo games since the GBA, and they don't have their Switch kits and Switch authorization yet because they haven't done an original game that Nintendo is going to approve.
Right, but before you had to be a Nintendo developer, period.
Yeah.
So now it's open to that.
It's better, but it's not best.
It's better, but it's not ideal.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, look at this graph right here. What do they say? 47% on Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a survey. If you could release your game on a single platform, what would it be? 47% of people, 47.5 said Nintendo Switch. 32.8.
47.5 said PC.
Oh, PC. Oh, I see. The colors are weird for me. 32.8 said Nintendo Switch. 6.6 mobile, and 11.5 said PlayStation. And what is that? Something so small for the Xbox One. There's not even a number.
Yeah. And that's in the long run going to hurt them. But, you see, like another one of the things that, I clipped out there, Owlboy just came out for Switch, and it was profitable within 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's 600, 700 games on there already. But, Owlboy came out in February. It didn't just come out. My apologies. But you're seeing a strong demand for known indie games that have been on PC and are now moving over to Switch.
And I think it's because a lot of people that have a Switch don't necessarily play PC games. So it's pretty much a whole different audience.
Yeah, for me, I've got a lot of indie games on my Switch. To me, it's because the Switch is the mobile tablet gaming that I always wanted out of Apple or Google. I didn't want to play a bunch of free-to-play games on my tablet. I wanted real games.
Mm-hmm.
And so now with the Switch, I can get the real games, and I can carry it with me wherever I want to go.
Do you think
that's what
that's going to carry on to like to mobile tablets and stuff? People are, you know, 20, 30, $60 games. You don't think that would ever trend?
no. It's that die has already been cast. I mean, you get games that come out. You know, Aspera released Civ 6 for $60 on Apple, but you know, part of the problem is the guts and the tech behind these things. Because I nearly paid for it because I love Civilization series, but you know, I have an older iPad, and I'm reading reviews from people that have the newer generation iPads, and they're like, yeah, when you get into like turn 300, turn 400 towards end game, it just starts chugging along. You know, it's not, you know, it's not doing what it could be doing, and it starts slowing down. So I think because that tablet is and mobile phones are meant as a means of, they're doing a lot of things and not just games, you know, that hurts it. Whereas a Nintendo Switch is made to play games, and that's it. And so, you know, you're going to get more traditional business models on that.
And Nintendo just announced their paid online stuff.
Yeah.
So that will be like Xbox Live or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that will add anything to it. I kind of like it the way it is now, but...
Well, you're going to be able to... they're going to have a library of existing games. They're not doing the virtual console like they did with the Wii and the Wii U. You know, there's going to be for that fee, you're going to get a existing, you know, library of games.
Oh, so it'll be kind of like Xbox Games Pass.
Yeah.
Where you pay $10 a month. Which is dumb because you have to get Games Pass and Xbox Live. So you're paying for two things. But... like, it's dumb. Well, it's not dumb. I just don't like it. Okay, so you did an interview for a podcast, right?
Yeah.
Let's post that link right here.
Yeah, so Tony Chan, who does the Game Dev Loadout podcast, I came across his series a couple of weeks ago, and I was, you know, I thought it was great because he just sits down, he's got like 90 some episodes of this thing where he's just sitting down and chatting with people in the industry, getting a whole lot of different perspectives from a whole lot of different, you know, roles in the industry. And he asked me if I would do it, and I was like, yeah, sure. And it was absolutely so fun. You know, we had a really good time. And so it came out, that was like 2 weeks ago, and it was released on Wednesday. So, you know, if you want to, we talked about, you know, the hardest days that I've had, or, you know, the biggest disappointments and things like that, you know, deals that have gone sideways, or just, you know, general things in the industry, you know, feedback on why you should follow up with conferences and all of that kind of good stuff. But yeah, it was fun, and it was released, you know, last week or this week. So that is, yeah, there it is right there in the chat. So feel free to check that out.
Game Dev Loadout. I haven't listened to it yet. I'm going to have to. Not a big podcast listener.
I just started. So, I mean, it's something that I can have on during the day, and it's a little easier to, that way there's something going on in the background that I can listen to.
And then you just kind of absorb the information.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so here we go. Accessibility controllers, which are awesome.
Yeah, so the Powell Group sponsors the Gaming Accessibility Conference every year. This was the second year that they had it out at GDC, and it was, a friend of mine was, you know, instrumental in getting it started, and she asked us last year if we, you know, sponsor, and I was like, yeah, you know, that's really cool. I love, you know, that it's being done, and it's a passion of ours. So yeah, absolutely. And then I saw, you know, this week that Microsoft's got accessibility controllers, which is fantastic. And so if you're not familiar with a lot of the stuff that, you know, goes along with how to make your game accessible to players with disabilities, you know, anything from, you know, quadriplegic to, you know, color blindness, there's a lot of things that you can do to, you know, increase the accessibility, for lack of a better word, the accessibility of your game. And I know 2 years ago, and I think Tara gave a talk at GDC on it as well. She went through, what they did at Turtle Rock with one of their games to increase the accessibility. And what they found was the gamers that weren't necessarily colorblind, really liked the changes to the UI that were made for, overall. And so they adopted that. People would, take that and use that as their default setting. So it's a very, it's a movement within the industry that's certainly, gaining steam. And it's awesome to see, some, mainstream validation of this with, with specialized controllers from Microsoft. So yeah, I was just happy to see that one.
Right. That's awesome. I think a limb or that kind of thing, or where they can't play some action game, or that kind of thing, or where they can't play some action games, or they can only play like real-time strategy games because of whatever disability that they have. And I know a lot of people that have a lot of different ones. It's pretty crazy. Okay, so what's this here? Esports gambling could be good for game publishers.
Yeah, and this is just an interesting side note that came out of Take-Two's earnings call the other day. So if you weren't aware, the Supreme Court said that, sports betting in general is legal everywhere, but each state here in the U.S. anyway, each state has to come. We're running on limited bandwidth today. We're running on limited bandwidth today, gamer husband. It's going to be sort of a podcast, possibly. Luckily, we don't rely on visuals, and you don't necessarily have to look at me and Indy that often. But it's a big thing in the States because obviously, Nevada has always had sports betting, and New Jersey tried to open it up, and then they got sued by Nevada or the casinos or somebody. I can't remember who sued them. But the result of that in the Supreme Court this week was that any state can do it. So now we're going to have every state's going to come up with their own rules. And it was that was very interesting because we are seeing a rise of, professional, that was very interesting because we are seeing a rise of, professional esports on a, global level. And so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so we can bet on Overwatch now. We can get are we going to have fantasy League of Legends tournaments going on, like fantasy football? So it's interesting to, I don't know what's going to come of it. Nothing may come of it, but I thought it was something that was definitely oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
There's going to be so many sites popping up then.
Oh yeah.
So many. I can see that in the near future for sure. Let's look and see. He says it's lagging. It's working good from here. I mean, I have not dropped any frames.
Oh, it is on my end. It's static. It's buffering and it's static on this end. So I think we may be overclocking your laptop today. But the other two things, not necessarily news. Welcome, Butter King. Not necessarily news, but announcements. Heads up. Especially for indie developers. Indie Mega Booth has now opened up their applications for PAX West if you want to be in the booth with that. And then the other Indie Mega Booth thing, The Mix, which is going to be at E3, their deadline for submissions to be in their booth is tomorrow, May 18th. So yeah, in case you're watching this next week, you already missed that one. But these events and these groupings of indie devs at these shows are a great, opportunity to get in front of a whole lot of people in the industry. So I would highly suggest if your game is at the point where you're ready to start showing it to the public, then, check these out, do the submissions. They're both really, really good, programs to be in the first place, and you'll get some good, exposure.
Excellent. Let's see, is that better? My PC will be back soon.
We're having podcast week.
Yeah, it's podcast week.
So crowdfunding.
Okay.
Ready to dive into that one?
I am ready.
I will be, upfront in saying I am a firm believer that the crowdfunding stage has passed us. The wave is gone. It's much harder than it was, even several years ago.
Well, people expect more. They expect more.
Yeah, exactly. It's gotten tougher. People have, Kickstarter burnout. There were a lot of large name projects that people, invested in that never, saw the light of day. So, that's part of it. And then you've got, an overcrowding issue as well. But that's not to say you shouldn't absolutely do it if the situation is right. So, we wanted to go into your different options, pros and cons of each one, and, then some best practices. And there's gobs of this information on the internet out there. There's, several very specific crowdfunding lectures from GDC, that I've come across. But, we're going to give you an overview today, and then, let you look into what you think is best for your team, for your situation. So, in terms of the three major ones, for crowdfunding platforms for games, you got Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and Fig. Kickstarter is obviously the biggest one. They've got over twice the number of visitors, to that site that Indiegogo does. The hard thing is, it's very, very tough to get traction for your project, but the payoff is once you do, it's a much bigger payoff. Which it has to be because, the rule with Kickstarter is if you don't hit your goal, you don't get any of your money. So if you told your backers that you needed $400,000 and you get $399,999, you get nothing. Now, typically what we see is, if a project gets that close and isn't going to go over, magically, another donor comes in and drops it, that's dealing with the developer's family or a friend or something, to get over that hump. But the reality is, if you don't hit your goal, you get no money. Indiegogo is different. You get whatever, gets contributed, whether you hit a goal or not. Both of these sites take fees. It's like, a 5% fee off the top, and then another 3 to 5% that go into transactional fees and everything like that. So in your mind, when you're creating your budget and your page, you need to, make sure that you're going to cover what needs to be covered. That, you're not going to be short money simply because you didn't take into account, the different fees that come along. Fig is the third one. Fig's only been around for a few years now. It's a much smaller platform. It's not something that you can just decide you're going to put a post up on and do it. They have an application process to go through. The good news is you get support from a board of, Tim Schafer, Fergus Urquhart, Brian Fargo, folks that are, deeply, deeply passionate about this industry and experienced. They're the ones that are, helping out on the back end. So there's not as many games up there, but they're typically they do a little better. So yeah, and with the fees on Fig, it's a flat rate. It's not a percentage. So you pay them one time, and then you're done. The one that's an outlier that doesn't work with a lot of games, but it's done very well with people that are making video series based on games or, mods, things like that, is Patreon. And Patreon works in a monthly subscription, basis. So you pay every month and you get some sort of, perk in the end. I'm a member, I'm a Patreon of Sergey's Steam Spot project, for example. But you can go on there and you can find folks that do a lot of streamers or have Patreon pages.
Right. Or YouTubers do like X amount per video. Oh,
yeah. So I mean, there's all kinds of, but it's not a, contribute once and then wait for your rewards to come in. It's a monthly subscription based, whatever. Dwarf Fortress is actually, supported by Patreon. And so I can see, down the road as we get, more and more business models along with games, and we're already in the whole games as a service section anyway, how that can, translate into, more Patreon based games. So I think that'd be very interesting to see. I mean, we're used to paying subscriptions for games. We pay for, MMOs. We pay for, certain access and free to play games. So it's out there. It's just a matter of, who's hitting it the best.
So Kickstarter, you think Kickstarter has the most games going up every month, and then Indiegogo, and then Fig?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and Kickstarter actually releases their stats, which I wasn't able to find anything on Indiegogo or Fig, but 38,000 games have been released on Kickstarter since they launched the site. Right now, there are 561 games on Kickstarter.
Jeez, with a 36% success rate.
Yeah. Which is actually better than it used to be, because, it used to be like 10%, because it was people, weren't going, they weren't budgeting correctly, or they were over budgeting, or, there's been a lot of evolution in best practices on things like Kickstarter. You have entire PR and marketing firms who focus on, helping people have a successful Kickstarter.
And they have to make enough because they have to pay taxes, and then the people would fail because they would make their rewards too extravagant, and that would end up like they would do a Kickstarter to create a game, and the rewards would be so awesome that they would end up spending most of the money on the rewards for people.
Yeah, and that all goes into how you budget it, and so it it's very tough to do it, but it can pay off well in the end. But people have been burned by a lot of these games that have been promised all this great stuff on Kickstarter, and then they, never see the light of day. And it's hard enough for an indie team to make a game and get it out there. But, doing that at the same time you're trying to do a Kickstarter, and then managing your community while you're doing your game development, it can get to be a nightmare. And, a lot of companies
they will do things like not only just burn people, but then they will, for example, I backed, it was called Face Rig, and it's that thing that it's like motion capture, but it's like an animal's head, and they had different characters that you could be. So I'm like, this will be awesome to use in a live stream. So I backed it. It's like you get first access to it, etc. But then all of a sudden I saw it was in Steam Early Access even before they released it to the Kickstarter backers.
That's not good.
No, and it pissed me off. It made me mad. I actually haven't backed anything since then.
Well, no, see, and that's what happens. You get a couple of bad apples that ruin the bucket for everybody. So, in terms of best practices, we went through and we looked at a lot of interviews and a lot of post-ops that were done by, developers, and even some tips from the folks at Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And then, just things that we've seen over the years, because we've helped a few studios with their Kickstarter. So Kickstarter recommends that you start telling people about your campaign 6 months before you launch. And I know this is going to be like not what everyone wants to hear, because, and that's part of the problem. People don't plan far enough in advance for their Kickstarter, because you have to have a community before you launch. They want you to do 20% of your goal in the first 48 hours. And if not, the algorithms say you are, on the path to failure, that way. So, you have to start building that community. And whether you do it from another game that you had, or, if you've got a series of, you've got a newsletter or a bunch of Twitter followers, or, how you do that, it's completely up to you. But you absolutely have to have a community before, you launch, or you're basically talking to no one. I mean, we did a Kickstarter 3 years ago, probably four maybe. And even then, it was known in the press, they don't cover Kickstarters anymore. We got coverage for that project because it had some very, very big name people involved with it that worked on some really, really big games back in the day that tied, directly to what they were trying to get funded on Kickstarter. So we actually did end up getting some press from websites and magazines and things like that. But in general, you can't count on that. No one's going to cover your project unless you have a ridiculously awesome story to tell. And 99.9% of companies aren't going to have that story. So you've got to come into it with your own community. You have to have a demo, regardless.
Demo that people can just click on right on the page and download and check it out.
Yep. If you don't, it's
decreases your chances immensely.
Yeah, I'm not going to say you're going to fail automatically, but you have very strongly hamstrung yourself there. So you've got people they want to be rewarded immediately. You got to have a good video. You got to have sharp visuals. You got to know what you're doing, but you have to have a demo that is that shows the players what you're doing.
You're still waiting for your Kickstarter game to be released? I know. I've got a friend that he was supposed to release his game a while ago, and he's still working on it.
I've actually been afraid to go back and see how many Kickstarters that I financed that I never actually, saw the game on. But they also say that you need to plan your updates just like you will with social media. And one of the things that we talked in one of the earlier broadcasts is about building your social media calendar. And so the planning that out, having your first couple of updates ready to go is absolutely key to keeping that momentum. You have to be able to communicate with your users directly. Daily. To keep them interested and keep them passionate, or you start getting toxic people in your thread. One of the things that we saw in the project that we did was, the team didn't really think through the questions that they were going to be asked, and they didn't have all of the answers ready to even most basic questions, like, multiplayer questions. How's multiplayer going to work, and this sort of stuff. And so we would be working with them on an AMA and getting, feedback coming in and questions coming in. And over in the Slack channel, I'm watching like the leads of the project argue over basic things. And I'm sitting there going, why have y'all not thought this through, to this extent yet? But if you're not responsive to your backers, and it's a full-time job to do this, they start getting real hesitant. If you're answering their questions, even if it's not exactly what they want to hear, but you're acknowledging that they exist, it can be a huge benefit to them, influencing other people to come in and back this as well.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we did was go through and look at similar games. Because you could go through the FAQ and the questions and answers they get asked, and you just basically start to compile a list of, here are the typical questions that we see in a Kickstarter or in a crowdfunding project in general, and have those answered up front, so you don't have to go back and, okay, so how are we going to do this? And let's discuss this internally, and all that kind of good stuff. So, don't launch around holidays and major conferences. I see so many devs come to me and they're like, yeah, we got this game and we're going to announce the Kickstarter at E3 or at Gamescom. And I'm like, no, you don't want to do that. Like, wow, there'll be plenty of people. There'll be all these people there. It's like, yes. And you're going to get overswarmed by everything else that EA and Activision and, Blizzard and Take-Two and all the other companies are doing. Your press is not going to get seen.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get the visibility that you think you're going to get. Wait until that period has died down, and that's 2 weeks before the show and at least a week after, if not 2 weeks after. You can't obviously plan around every show in the world, but the three that you absolutely want to avoid are GDC, Gamescom, and E3. Don't announce around those dates because no one's going to know you announced, basically.
Well, When do you think the best time to announce something like that, or to announce their game or whatever?
Not Q4, because all the press in October, November, December is wrapped around Christmas games, because all the AAA games come out. It's like this year we're already seeing publishers move launch dates of games because of Red Dead 2, because they know it's coming. It's going to be a beast, and they're like, well, let's wait until later and launch till that part's out of the way. I wouldn't launch. I mean, I would not announce anything from the middle of October on through the end of the year. The good thing about launching in January or February is there isn't a lot of other news, and you have people who have got money for Christmas, or they're getting tax breaks back in April. Those are better times, but you just need to look at what you're going to be competing against. Just because there's going to be an event with a lot of people there doesn't mean you're going to get a lot of coverage. So I would stay away from those shows and stay away from the last 2 months of the year.
Especially as an indie dev. Unless October, if you're doing a horror game.
Yeah, that's a good exception. If you're doing something, tied to that, then that could be, really, really good timing. But in general, for a typical game, you want to avoid that, like the plague. Mm-hmm. One of Kickstarter's other suggestions is never announce the stretch goals until you meet your initial goal. And, I see people doing this a lot. And, I've never understood why people would do it, because it just raises more questions. And then, I read this and it says, what they say is it does nothing good for you. If you share them early, you can't adapt them to the expectations of the backers. It even takes a great communication beat away from you, because you don't have anything, to talk about later on. So, wait until you hit your goal and then start talking about your stretch goals. They said, we touched on this already, but they want to see 20% of the goal in the first 48 hours so that you start tracking towards a successful, launch. Because I know when I see a game coming out and it's been on Kickstarter specifically for a while, you can go to Kick Track, and I think that's Kick, TRAQ. Pulling it up now. No, that's a news site. There's a specific site that goes and, with their experience in watching and monitoring Kickstarters over all these years, they can fairly accurately show or predict if a Kickstarter is going to succeed or not based on, the metrics they see coming in, day to day. So, you want to be able to have as good news as possible. But yeah, you definitely want to organize your community to, hit it day one and start contributing heavily then, so you stay on track for the rest of the project. And then finally, they say free-to-play games, mobile games, and kids games struggle the most, and that makes a whole lot of sense if you think about it, because one, most mobile games are free-to-play games, and if I'm contributing money to get a game developed, I don't necessarily want to have to pay for, in-app purchases and stuff on the back end. And then kids games, because most kids games are dominated by licenses anyway. That's a very tough market in the first place. But it's not really the target audience. It's more indie games and mainstream, titles versus kids games. So, that's the best practices that we come about, from our own experience and from, guides and stuff that we've seen online. And there's a few sites that we can share that have more info on this.
This one's right here?
Yeah, we'll get them pasted in the chat.
Okay, I'll do it.
But yeah.
Oops. Divinorium in the house. And what, you backed the game Mark of the Old Ones? I haven't seen that one.
I remember that, but I don't know the...
Pophead, what's up, buddy?
Mark of the... Oh, wow, that hasn't shipped yet?
Even Mark of the old ones. Okay, here's we'll post this link in a little bit. Mark of the old ones.
It's from 2003. Release date. Oh, no, it did. It came out early last year. So, I mean, but yeah, I mean, I've had several that I've contributed to over the years, but, you know, now it's the point where I'm like, I'll wait till it comes out. You know, I'll wait and see how everything works out before I jump in and do another one at this point.
Mm-hmm. Good news, you're launching your new game in February of 2019.
What is it?
Yeah. It's not the Pong game you were working on, is it, gamer? What's up, Pophead? How's it going, dude? How's your game been doing since it's released, Pophead? And is the video better? I seem to be the upload seems to be better. I went through and Control-Alt-deleted some stuff.
It looks like we're still a little bit behind.
But it's not laggy, is it? Things are moving around.
Yep, things are moving. I can't tell how far behind it is, though.
Oh, well, yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with my computer. How far behind? That's just Twitch. And the low latency is sometimes it is a couple seconds, and sometimes it might be like 10. But also, this channel, we got affiliate status as of today, right? Or was it last night
Well, technically last night, but I was I had not had enough coffee yet to do all the paperwork that goes along with that. So it was as of this morning, actually.
So you can subscribe, and any of the money goes back into the stream for things. Jay knows what those things are. For
giveaways and things that we'll do along the way. But we haven't. There's no master plan for that yet. But yeah, so that's good. And then anytime anyone if you've got questions or you want us to focus a show on something in particular, let us know. And a lot of the stuff that we go over, you can find in the guides and the panels on the bottom, underneath our sometimes moving pictures. Hit those up. We'll send you all the white papers that we have. And then on YouTube, we not only keep these episodes, but we're creating a content library for indie devs to go and find recent curated videos on, usually from conferences. We've got one about indie game law and business, indie game marketing, general development guides for indie developers, and then there's even a playlist with talks and tips on self-publishing if you want to go that route. So we're trying to put a lot of good content together for the indie devs in general. So there is a library, a good place to have this knowledge. So those of us who've been doing this for a long time, we tend to actually forget that the stuff that we take for granted in terms of knowledge isn't it isn't basic knowledge to everyone. So that's a lot of why we do this in the first place.
There's a playlist I just posted, Creator Basics for Kickstarter. Those are playlists you just recently made, right?
No, actually, I found that on their site. They made that one.
Nice.
So I mean, the folks at Kickstarter and Indiegogo and Fig, they want you to, succeed as well. One, because they get a portion of it, but it makes them look better. So they are, they're going to do what they can do to, help you do your project successfully, basically. So, don't be afraid to ask for tips. Like we said, with a lot of other things, talk to your peers, talk to, friends or companies or, other people in the industry, that have done this successfully. Gama Sutra is a very good place to go because, I see blogs on there all the time about postmortems on crowdfunding campaigns. So yeah, just reach out and see how things are going.
Excellent.
I was just on their Steam page, and it said it was released early 2017. It may not have been. Let me check.
News to you. I thought you were on top of everything, Gamer. Usually he's on top of everything. He knows things. But you're like, Gamer, have you heard of it? He's like, I knew about that yesterday. All the time.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, that covers what we've got. You know, if anybody's got any questions, you can throw them out there. If not, you can also find us. You can find me in the evenings, at least for the next little bit, dying repeatedly and inflaming the fire. And then I'm going to play through Subnautica again. Or actually, I haven't touched it in a year since it, you know, especially since it came out. But I'm going to play through that as well. So that's, you know, there's no set schedule for when we do those. You know, I'll sit whenever I'm sitting down playing something, you know, interesting, you know, from some of the great indie games that are out there, you know, I'll turn on the stream. And so, yeah, hit me up. Let me know if you got any questions and feel free.
You know, one thing we could do, whenever an indie dev comes into the chat, like we could talk with them and we could stream their game and like give feedback on it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that we talked about too, is doing a feature creep section where we sit down and we play, you know, some of the indie games that are either out there in early access, or, you know, if you want to send us your game and you want our unfiltered feedback live in front of, you know, God and everybody, you know, we're happy to do that as well. But, you know, just sit down and just go through and comment on things that we see, or things that, you know, look good, or things that we'd like, you know, a different point of view on. You know, that's something we're going to be doing more of as well.
Okay, well, we do have some questions in the question pool here. I think we already did. Are these broken up into? That's about publishers.
No, they're not. Or they're not organized at all. I'll put them in there as we get them coming in.
Most of those links don't seem to be working. Divinorium said.
They don't. You know what? I wonder if Bitly's down. No, that's not it. I will look into that. I'm not sure why that's not working. Oh, some of them the title of it has cascaded over into the HTML.
Into the link? It doesn't look like that for me. Everything is separate.
Well, it said, all right, so like the second one down is the game development playlist. The URL should be indie game development videos.
Yeah, that's what it is for me. And then it
that's
stops.
Weird. It's not showing up on mine like that.
Huh. I'm using Google Chrome.
Yeah, so am I.
That's weird. That is really bizarre.
That one, all right, so the one from Moobot there worked.
Oh yeah, all the ones that I had posted just a second ago work. That's weird.
I have no idea.
You know what? It does that sometimes. Twitch is wonky. Sometimes I'll put a link in a panel, and it puts in twitch.tv/ and then the link for some freaking reason. So who knows what?
So that's what showed up in my chat box, where it tagged the, you know, it moved over the first word of the title actually into the HTML.
Wow. It totally does not look like that for me. Huh.
Wonderful.
Weird. Okay, well, let's get to a couple questions. We got some time. Do you guys have any questions? Wait, you know what? Let me post those all broken up. I can post them broken up here. So that way
I'll go through the
questions. Okay, and I'll post.
Yeah. So one of them says our game's already been released on Steam and we have a pretty high rate of good reviews. However, we have not had any media YouTubers pick it up at all. The launch went pretty unnoticed. We were hoping to get some reviews by major sites. We're a small developer and not sure how to get noticed. So the bad news is once your game is released, unless it's like in the first day or so after it releases, then it's very, very tough to get coverage, because it's
Yeah.
not new anymore. And so even if it's only been out for a week, you're going to have a tough time getting a lot of coverage. You have to start planning your marketing and all of that stuff far before you're actually launching. And to be quite frank, website magazine reviews don't have the impact that they used to have anyway. Everything is moved over to, so much along the lines of influencer marketing and streamers and that sort of stuff. So, it's hard to get traction, just out of the gate like that in the first place. But it's something you always, and I know it's like too little too late for us to be telling you this now, but, going down the future, these are things you've got to start thinking of like 3 to 6 months before you're actually ready to launch.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like Kickstarter. You got to build that community. The best thing to do, at this point, center any kind of announcements, press release, go back and get on Keymailer so you've got a, verifiable route to getting, your game in front of a bunch of streamers. But, center everything around a content update. You can say, hey, look, we launched 2 months ago and, didn't get a lot of fanfare, but here's update 1.1 or 1 point whatever. And this is what we added. You want to take a look. You're not going to be able to get a lot of traction just by going out and saying, hey, we launched, but nobody really noticed. But if you can time that along the lines of, an upcoming content release, that's a good way to, to catch everybody's attention.
Nice. Licensing. Licensing can mean different things to different people. How's it work? How can I get my game licensed?
Oh my God, that's a topic for a whole new show. Licensing, yeah, it used to mean more things, now less so. So we used to talk about game licensing just like we're doing publishing, because we actually had to have your publisher in Europe would be different than your publisher in North America, because the ones in Europe had access to the retail stores for, the European continent, and, the other one had access to North America. So we would actually license the game to be manufactured and everything over in Europe. That's not a big deal anymore. So, licensing now revolves around, IP, how, can you bring an intellectual property into your game? You've got a runner, but you want to make it a Garfield runner, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Or when you get to a certain stage, like recently we saw with Hello Neighbor, for example, you go into the store and there's like Hello Neighbor toys and t-shirts, and, Rovio flat out mastered this years ago when Angry Birds got big. So, depending on the direction in which you're asking, licensing is not something you should worry about at all until you have a huge following. Until the game hits really big, you're just wasting time even pondering licensing the intellectual property of your game out to other stuff. But the other side, if you want to go out and find a license to use in your game, that is a whole different ballgame. We can actually do a whole different show on that, because we do a lot of that here. But, in many of the same ways that we talked about going and finding a publisher for your game, that's how you kind of go about finding licensing, a license for it as well. You have to look at what kind of game you're creating, what's your audience, what the platform it's going to be going to, is it something for mobile games, is it something for Xbox, or consoles. And then you have to look at the demographics and how all of that crosses up, and you end up creating this really big Venn diagram of, the ideal type licenses. Getting a license, sometimes it's so easy, because sometimes you can go after something and, you pick up the phone and you call whoever owns the IP and they're like, yeah, we're not doing anything in games. This would be great. Let's do it. I've had licensing deals that took 2 weeks to get done. I've had licensing deals that took 6 months to get done. It just depends on what you're doing, who you're dealing with, and a whole lot of other factors that, are too random to really, compress into a single guide. But, I'm a big fan of going and getting a license for product, especially if you're dealing with a very crowded marketplace and you don't have this big epic 3, 4, 5 game series, laid out for the IP along with your game. Getting a good license and working with a licensor that is going to actually support you can really, really, really help you. But you have to do a lot of that same research, go in and find what's going to fit well, and then go from there.
I know it's way too late, but I've been trying to build a community using Twitter, but I don't feel good about using the follow-unfollow tactics, and you were failing miserably since you haven't had much time to properly work in the game lately. So you're curious, what is a good tactic? Well, a good tactic is, for one, is to make interesting content. Don't just go like, here's something of my game, and then post that. Everybody sees that kind of stuff, Try and sit down and think a little bit what your content should be. Make the post kind of look attractive, even just by the way you space things that you say. And make it where like, oh, this is funny, and let's click on it. If somebody says, here's the latest update to our game, well, that's freaking boring. Unless somebody is into that game, and they're like, oh, yeah, this game is update. But saying, like, I don't know what your game is, so making content relevant to your game, but make it funny, make it humorous, make it intriguing, make it interesting. That's like the most important thing, is having good content in the first place.
All right, so here's my weakness when it comes to social media at all: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. I'm not an artist. I'm not even a good graphic designer. I can't sit down and go, oh, let's take this content and make a nice social media header to go along with it. The one thing I do know about social media is you have to have visuals now. When you're sitting there watching your Twitter feed, if it's nothing but text, you're not really going to pay attention as much as something that's going to pop out and grab your attention. So this is a site that I use a lot, Canva. It is like idiot proof for going in and creating everything from, just basic banners to memes to, even full-blown infographics. The infographic that we have for your, like the top 10 pitch deck infographic, that came from, I created that with Canva. And so, it's very easy to use. Uh-huh. And then the other one that I've started using is called Lumen 5. And if you've seen some of the videos that we have on the YouTube page, and they're a constant state of evolution as I'm learning a little more and more about it. But Lumen 5 lets you go in and take a blog post and immediately turn that into a video, and it takes 5 minutes. I mean, it's actually really, really, really good. Let me just pull up one of our one of the videos, if I have it right now on there. Actually, I'm in the middle of updating them, so I actually don't have it on YouTube. But let's see here. I can probably pull one of these things up and share it or edit it through the site. Maybe not.
Pophead says, where's the Discord for this? We don't have our own Discord channel yet. I hate the follow you, follow me. It's cheating, and it attracts the wrong audience. Unless
it does.
Unless you are following people that you think would be interested in your content.
But at the same time, I agree with that. If you do just the Follow Fridays thing and you get a bunch of followers, it's like anything else. There's a difference between a follower that's just like increasing your follower count, mm-hmm. and a quality follower that's actually engaging with your brand, engaging with your game, or interested in what you're actually doing.
I totally agree with that. Totally.
That's where the big difference is, and yeah, when you're sitting there and going, okay, I'm going to follow a bunch of these people so that they'll follow me, you're not really, getting an engaged follower at that point. It's just,
I have
somebody
a big
else's
but right
energy.
there. But if you follow people that you think might enjoy your content, after a while, once you get so many followers, your Twitter will just, you don't have to do that anymore. Your Twitter will just start growing organically. Every time
Yeah.
I look, when I started out, I did the follower unfollow thing for several months, but I did only follow people that were relevant. And then I would go and it was like, oh, if someone's not following me or hasn't been active in so long, then I would just unfollow them. Or I would go through and see, like, I don't really like this person's content or it's not what I'm interested in, then I would unfollow it. But now I have 14.5 thousand followers, and every time I look at my page, it's like 10 people had followed me, and I have done nothing except for make a couple posts or maybe retweet out some other people. So I
See,
think
there you
it,
go.
it is a mess up. It is a tactic, but you only want to, if you just follow random people, it's not going to work. You want people that will be interested in your content.
All right. So I published one of the quick videos that I made with Lumen. It's not final. I haven't done like final edits on it, but it'll at least show you what that site does. So I took one of the blog posts from our site and you plug it into Lumen and it automatically generates, the storyboard and everything. You can add music, but you could go through and highlight, different words and you can go through and customize it. But, versus sitting down and going, okay, I have to create like a 30, 45-second video, it's a gigantic time saver. And that's something that I've been using, lately to kind of kickstart some content in
That's a
terms of
chick with a
promotion.
credit card at the very end. She saw ta-dang. A lady with a credit card is my terminology.
So yeah, we did that one, and then we did one for our free indie guides. I mean, free guides for indie developers, and that one's actually got music that goes along with it. But yeah, those are both done with Lumen 5, and they took me maybe 15 minutes to make.
The reason we didn't give a Discord channel is because there are a lot of really good other Discord channels that are indie game focused.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Do we want to create something else that's already there, or I mean, because it's not hard. I mean, I can pull up Discord right now and make us a server if we want to do it. But there are other servers that have great content and great communities around them already out there. So
Let me post a couple here. The snowball concept. But when I was doing that, I did not follow people that's an indie game Discord server. And there's another one. When I was doing that with my social media, I really only focused on on people that I would think would be interested. Oh, I can't invite anybody to that server. Silly.
I don't know. Maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll make one. I'm not against it. I just don't want to go beat a dead horse on on content. So it's like
LOL. Yeah, we could have a Discord channel. Put it right at the top of the Discords. Hop in a couple times during the day.
I'm on. I mean, yeah, you can find me on Discord wherever. Just make sure that you put a little, you tag me in it because I'm on 7 or 8 different servers and I'll never see it otherwise. So
Right, I know. I'm on like 30, so if something pops up and somebody just puts my name, I don't necessarily see it. Really, the only way I ever see anything is if somebody sends me a message on Discord. Otherwise, I won't see it. So if somebody's in a server and they at me, I'm not ever going to see it. And I got rid of a lot of the servers that I was on because I didn't interact on them.
yeah, that's what I mean. I'm only on like 9, and I probably need to do the very same thing.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll look into that. Indy actually brought it up like last week, and I was like, "Nah, we don't need it. People aren't gonna want to do that." I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm wrong.
And it would be a good place to have all those playlists set up in there. You would reject that video for several reasons.
If you want to come in and be our official, Powell Group video creator, I will pay you exactly what I'm paying the other guy that's doing it right now.
Which is nothing?
Which is nothing, yeah, because it's me. But no, all seriousness, give me feedback. I love feedback. I don't care if it's good or not. Actually, I prefer it be bad for you. I prefer it be good, negative feedback instead of just somebody going, "Oh yeah, that's great," because that doesn't help anything. But yeah. Anything else we can hit on today?
Bam, you just opened the door for a Borat impression. My wife. I don't know. This resolution is bad and it's only text, no speech.
Yeah, I don't think Lumen has an option to do speech. And the resolution for the plan I'm at caps at 720.
Yeah, that's why the resolution is bad. It's because... There we go.
I love Indy's ringtone.
It's only for honeys. Because she loved that song at one time. It needs to change, but... The Young and the Restless theme or something.